Let's Talk Books, the official podcast of BookExpo America, BEA. On this episode, we visit with Steve Rosato, Event Director, BookExpo America. So Steve, you've been in the industry for some time now, and of late been the leader of BookExpo. How has the role of BEA changed specifically over the last maybe 5 or 6 years, in your opinion?
The industry still needs a gathering place. And you can go back in time a little bit and look at it when people wrote orders. Borders were still around, and independent bookstores were the dominant way books got into the market. But that has really, and it's more, that's changed a lot more over the last 5 or 6 years. But when everything sort of cratered for everyone, every industry in 2008, BEA was probably much more at the front of having to reinvent itself and deal with being able to deliver value for people participating. And that's on both sides of the aisle. It's the ROI that exhibitors get and the ROI that attendees get. Because if they're going to make the investment to come, it's got to be worth their while. There's a lot of ways to discover books and meet publishers and authors. And the thing that BEA continues to offer, aside from being that industry gathering spot, which it's a very nebulous concept, but the industry does sort of need that, but it is extremely efficient. You're going to be able to see, annually we get anywhere between 600, 700, 800 authors at BEA. Any bookseller, Winter Institute is a fantastic event, but at most you're going to see 60, 70, 80 authors there on a really good year. Just the breadth of what is available across the industry to know what's coming, and then the opportunity to see remainders, to see what's going on in the world of digital. Education has continued to play an important role in BEA, or I should say, the need to provide good education for people, whether it is on metadata tagging or how to run a Facebook campaign. But the education adds a huge value for what people get out of the show. So being there, what they participate, what they walk away that they could take back to their businesses is really going to be part of the future of BEA. People need to be able to justify why they went and have actionable stuff when they come out of the show. And we're a lot more focused on delivering workshop-type programming where people are learning skills and doing something that impacts their business.
In terms of the face-to-face opportunities, do you feel that that is equally as big as something like you said about education, or even the hundreds of amounts of authors that you have access to?
You can never underestimate the value of the face-to-face interaction. The dinners, the evening events, because everyone's there, that makes it so efficient. But the ability to get this really great group of booksellers around to meet with an author offsite. Even a few years ago, one of my huge dreams around BEA was to have, meet Keith Richards, and when his biography came out and he was unable to be there. But living in Connecticut and around commitments and rehearsing, he still was able to come into New York and do a bookseller dinner. And I do think that contributed to the success of that book. It was, personally as a fan, it was a great book, but as a book itself, literary-wise, it was a fantastic book. And I think BEA played a small role in that, just the ability for the editor and for Keith Richards to take a key group of booksellers out, the efficiency of everyone being there and being excited about specific things, and then coming back to the show next day and talking about it, and those precious few people who got to go out to that dinner, people were buzzing about it.
Could you talk a little bit about how the whole digital plane has in itself reinvented part of what it is that you guys do on a large scale during the show?
Digital remains fascinating, and I don't think we're nowhere near where we're going to end up being. Publishing remained largely unchanged for probably from like the 1920s, 1930s till probably 2005 or 6. There were CD-ROMs and a bunch of other stuff. But publishing houses now have to have people with digital skills in-house. And books have to be done in a variety of formats out the gate. They're not just getting books printed. They have to have it in, EPUB 3. It's got to be formatted for any way someone can consume a book. And while digital sales have primarily flattened out the last few years, they still remain a really important income stream. So there are efficiencies to be learned. And I think one thing that's changed a little bit, there were a lot more startup companies coming into the space and technology companies and people taking root. There's just been a little consolidation. The cream has sort of risen to the top, but they are part of the industry infrastructure. So that is part of the B2B stuff that happens at BEA all the time, where you're talking to your current clients, you're talking about new product developments. So that will always be part of BEA and part of the DNA.
One of the things that I know that you've been really working on or championing has been the involvement of international country in the heart of the show. Russia and China, and I know this year it's Poland. Could you talk a little bit about that global market element?
International was probably, 10 years ago, a lot more peripheral to BEA, but the U.S. represents by far the largest market out there, and its economy remains certainly far more stable and growing than other markets that are out there. And it is definitely, the leader in publishing as far as what is happening, and both in terms of content. And it's been a really good way to support international people, publishers coming to BEA. They might not do the rights business that they're doing at London or Frankfurt, which serve their purpose, but they also get to work with their American partners that they may publish with and see those authors and see how U.S. publishers are bringing books to market, and they do see what is going on in technology. But it also gives us an opportunity to spotlight different authors, because the U.S., if you went to Germany or to even China, you could probably find 3 or 4 or 5 publisher or authors' names that you'd recognize, whether it's a Stephen King or a James Patterson or so on, that populate their bestseller lists. If you look at a U.S. bestseller list, there's very few international authors that are going to, dot that. Joe Nesbo was sort of broken out, and certainly Stieg Larsson. I mean, he passed, but he's certainly kicked the door open for like Swedish crime fiction. But it is giving that platform where there's discovery around international voices, and I think that is a good way, both culturally, of bridging the gap, where people have a greater understanding of the world around them. And it's been really important for the B2B aspect of those international publishers coming to BEA to, one, have a platform, 2, to make it easy for the U.S. publishers to see who the players are, what the opportunities are. And it goes both ways. So it's really created a positive business flow, both to the U.S. and from.
I know this year you're going to be in Chicago, from normally the home base of New York City and the Javits. What are some things that you're looking forward to for the show in Chicago?
Chicago is one of my favorite cities. Aside from that, BEA had a very long and very proud history being in Chicago. There's a lot of efficiency being in New York. It's easier to send staffers, but I do think publishers are really eager for the opportunity to sort of get out of the office and be totally focused on it, because you have to remember, when BEA is in New York, they still have to take out their recycle bins and go to Little League games and all that stuff. So they're still living their life. But the other big upside about being in Chicago is, the main reason we did it is the American Booksellers Association will always remain our probably best and most valued constituency. Independent bookstores just represent something that is about discovery and being able to break out authors that you just can't duplicate in any other fashion. And that's why they remain our core constituency. But they've been dying to get out of New York. It makes it easier for the West Coast folks to come. It's less expensive than coming to New York. And Chicago is it's the headquarters for the ALA. It's a really strong library market, and BEA always did really, really well. When we first started going after librarians as an attendee segment aggressively, we did it in Chicago, and that's where we built that base. Plus, we have some additional programming, so we're expecting high watermarks, certainly over the recent years, both for librarians and independent bookstores there, and both those are just great for the show itself.
For reasons unknown to us, you're trapped on a deserted island. You can only take one book with you. What book will that be, and why? It's one of the few books that I've read multiple times, but I probably haven't read it in 15 years. But I would have to say Jack Kerouac's On the Road, only because it really inspired me. It got me listening to Charlie Parker. It made me look at the world a little bit differently. It made me consider my place in the world. It was something that just really both emotionally and intellectually moved me. Complete this sentence. I read
to get outside of myself, to clear my head, to, have me think about another point of view, to challenge myself, to be inspired more than anything else. Reading makes me want to either do more or do better or be better. I just find reading really inspirational.
Let's Talk Books is a production of BookExpo America, BEA, the leading book and author event for the North American publishing industry. Join us in Chicago for BEA 2016, May 11th through 13th at McCormick Place. For more information on this episode in BEA, visit bookexpoamerica.com.